want to give you some heads up on what to do on the backpack project. If you have a three-dimensional object, we're going to pretend that this is our backpack or part of our backpack. If I take that 3D object and I cut it apart, so I have this pulled up, this is the flap, and I cut here on the side, and I cut here on the side, cut here and cut here, and I fold it out and I lay it out flat, then you have a net. That's what a net is. A net is a 3D shape cut apart and laid down flat. So what you have to do is visualize what the backpack would look like if it was cut apart. And if you had a pattern and you were trying to create the cardboard that makes the box, or you're trying to create cut out fabric that would sew together to make the 3D object, you have to visualize what that would take. Now, a couple of other problems that you have in the backpack activity is that the dimensions are not the same. You have a decimeter, you have a meter, and you have some measures that are in centimeters. And so you have to get your measurements all to be one, and I recommend that you change them to centimeters. So if you have 1 decimeter, that makes 10 centimeters. And if you have 1 meter, that makes 100 centimeters. So when you rework the units, get them all into the same, then you would be able to measure out the backpack. I would suggest that you make the front piece and the back piece on graph paper, cut it out, do the side pieces, do the flap, do the straps on graph paper to scale. And then once you get each piece cut out, then you can lay it on another piece of graph paper and try to adjust the pieces so that you're using the least amount of fabric possible. Now I'm going to try to do a little bit of a sketch, and we're going to have to adjust the camera somewhat for you to see what I'm talking about. On the grid paper, I would let each line stand for maybe 5 centimeters. So you're going to make a scale. And let me continue to try to adjust the camera so that I can draw and you can see on the graph paper. So I'm going to let 1 square be 1 centimeter. So if I'm trying to cut out the front, and let's say that the front is 40 centimeters by 50 centimeters. Now this may not be what your backpack is, but this is going to give you an idea of what you're going to need to do. If I let 1 square be 5 centimeters, then 5 into 40 means that I would need to measure off 8 squares. And 5 into 50 means I would need to make 10 squares. Alright, so this is the front. Now on the front I have to decide where the seams would go. And let's say that I'm going to leave 1/2 centimeter. So I'm going to estimate if this is 5 centimeters, and I'm going to do half of that. So I'm going to estimate where the seam allowance would go. So I have a little bit left over here extra for the seam. Now there will be a seam on the side where the front meets the side of the backpack, and there will be a seam on the bottom where the front meets the bottom, and there will be a seam here where the front meets the side. On the top of the front, there won't be a seam. And so now I'm going to cut out this piece. And then I'll make another just like it that would represent the back. Now the back will have a seam here because the flap of the backpack will be attached to the top of the back. So the back would have a seam allowance all the way around, but it will also have a seam allowance here at the top. So you pretty much just are guessing a little bit extra for the seams on your dimensions. Now, the straps, it seems like, I don't remember exactly the dimensions, but if they are 1 decimeter, that means they're 10 centimeters. Now, I believe they were 1 meter long. Which is 100 centimeters. And so 5 into 100 would mean that you would use 20 squares to represent the flaps. And so if they were 5 centimeters wide and 20 centimeters long, if they were 5 centimeters wide, they would represent 1 square, and 20 centimeters long, so you're going to, or 100 centimeters long, you're going to make 20 and cut those out. And I believe you would, I believe it said you may have to line those, so you would do possibly 4 of them. Once you get all these pieces cut out, then you try to lay them on graph paper and calculate the least amount of fabric that you can have. Now the fabric width, I would draw out how wide the fabric can be so that your fabric can be as long as it needs to be, but it's only a certain width. That way, when you position your pieces on the fabric, then you're going to be able to judge how much length you're going to need of fabric.